International Media TV. Television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
Rachel's weeping for her children. Rachel's weeping. Somehow someone's got to save them. Save the children. And if you say that love the answer, why don't we begin? Or will we just end?
Hello, my name is Les Brown. I'd like to welcome you to an interview with Evelyn Polk. She is the author of a brand new book that everybody's talking about. The title of it is, It's Hard Work, Being the Village That Raises a Child. Hello, Evelyn. How are you?
I'm great, Les. How are you?
Evelyn, I want to thank you for the book. I represent the millions of kids that are adopted or foster kids, and because of people like yourself who care, there's a saying, judge a person not by what they do, but what they do that they don't have to do. And you've been a person that you've been committed to helping young people who are foster kids or adopted kids, and particularly those who are having problems with their parents, and helping the parents to deal with the emotional strain and stress in raising children that are adopted or foster kids, as well as the agencies that provide support services for those parents and those children. But most of all, I'd like to say thank you for the work that you're doing to reduce the recidivism rate, because a disproportionate number of children that many people are not aware of that are in foster agencies, that after they're emancipated, after they turn 18, and the state steps back and say, okay, make it on your own, many of these kids don't have the tools, are not emotionally mature enough to become adults, although they're 18, and many of them end up incarcerated. So because of the kind of work that you're doing, and this book is really a good book giving people the tools that they need to help to navigate these young people into the future and help them to become an asset to society rather than a liability. I want to know, how did you become involved in this work?
Well, I believe it started when I was a young child. I think the seed was planted when I was a young child, because I was an only child until I was 11. And I wanted brothers and sisters, so I tried to tell my mother to adopt, and she said, no way. Yeah. But I knew that when I became an adult, I thought I would have biological children and adopt too, because I wanted a large family. However, that did not happen. But out of graduate school, my first job was with an adoption agency. Yeah. Actually, out of undergraduate school was with an adoption agency. I was a clerical person and a case management assistant. And then when I got my graduate degree, I ended up in a county agency as an adoption social worker. So it was just all a part of the plan.
Now, when you talk about that it's hard work, you have to really do this from your heart, and it's hard work, H-A-R-D. You're talking from personal experience. How many children have you adopted?
I adopted 2,
yes,
and I did foster care for 2 others that were adopted by another family.
And the 2, now, you had a set of twins?
No, those were just some that I mentored and counseled.
Okay, and they were identical twins. I met them, and they're as different as day and night, just like my
you and your brother.
Absolutely.
And when you ask about them, you say, "How's it?" I said, "Mine is doing okay, but yours is acting up."
Right. Okay. Well, when you think about the work that is involved in this, what is the central message that you want people to know, and why is it that you found a need to write this book?
One, it was therapy.
Yeah, okay.
But I think the other thing is but
wait a minute, what was therapeutic for you in writing it?
Being able to talk about the pain, and to be able to just get out some of the misperceptions that were, I think, made of me because of the situations I found myself in with the kids, because my whole identity, my career, and everything was put on the line because of some of the perceptions that were made, because when the boys were acting out, people looked at me as if to say, what's going on?
Yeah, but they saw you as being responsible for their behavior.
And being the bad person.
Now, one of the things that parents deal with who adopt kids or take them in as foster kids, the moment of anger when they say, look here, you're not my mama, you're not my daddy, you can't tell me what to do. How do you tell a person to deal with that emotionally without losing it? I never would have thought about saying that to my mama, because I'd been dead now. I'd have got a beat down. Baby brother play that.
Okay.
Yeah.
However, mine came out in a slightly different way, but it was basically the same thing. My son became a teenager, the oldest one. We were going into counseling. And in the middle...
What happened that you needed to go into counseling?
What didn't happen?
Okay.
There was a whole series of events. And
what do some of those things look like? Because people need to know. What are some of the things that can happen? Yes.
Lying, and at this particular time, he had run away from home. And we were doing a reunification plan because I needed a timeout. I felt he needed a timeout. And it's like, you need to be over there, I need to be over here. You're still my son, I still love you, but we just need some...
When you say a timeout, what do you mean by that?
We need a timeout. He stayed at a temporary youth respite facility for a few weeks.
Okay.
And we did some counseling with their staff.
To work through the problems of the
Right.
lying and the stealing and running away from home.
Right, running away from
And
home.
did you resolve those things?
Yes and no, but that's
Yeah.
another part of
I
that.
mean, that's like a question like, are you pregnant? Yes or no?
Well, I say yes and no because he's grown now. And I'm still his mom.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I want to point out. I'll come back to that. But in this counseling session, whatever the issue was that came up, he said, I wish I had never been adopted. I understood what he was saying. The therapist looked at me, she was like scared that I was going to lose it. But I looked at him, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I said, you know what? I wish you had never been adopted, too. I wish the circumstances that brought you to the place where you had to be adopted had never happened, because I know there was a lot of pain in that. See, and I knew from here that that wasn't about me.
Yeah.
That wasn't about me. That was about him wanting to be where he had started growing up, because I didn't adopt him until he was 9 years of age. And so he had
The
had...
mold was already set.
Right.
So
But
you're saying that the way that you did not go off and become angry with that statement and that act of disrespect was that you knew it wasn't about you. It was misplaced anger,
Exactly.
as many people say.
Exactly.
And so you didn't internalize that.
Right.
And so rather than react with anger, you responded with love and understanding. And that's part of what you do in this book. It's a handbook of how to become grounded and live in that kind of situation from the inside out rather than from the outside in, because most people would just react with anger and say, if that's the way you feel, then consider yourself unadopted.
And I hear it so much. I hear foster parents say, well, you don't have to be here.
Yes.
And that breaks my heart, because that's really not what the child is saying. But the caregivers are so immersed with all of their issues of rejection and fear, even though we have those, but you have to know where to put those. Now, it's a memoir. It's not really a handbook. It's just a story of what I went through, and hopefully by example of the way that I handle many of the situations, people will look and say, oh, that's a different way of approaching it.
Well, and that's one of the things about the book, is that it's not just about mental stamina. It's about insight on how to begin to respond in a way that can best resolve and lead to a solution rather than exacerbating the problem.
Right. But also how to take care of you in the process.
What do you mean by that?
How, even though there's a lot of pain, there's a disappointment, and how to not, as they say, not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. How when the child is acting out and you know that you've given everything that you could possibly give and it doesn't look like it's working, rather than saying, forget this, I wish I hadn't done it. How to remain there, but not let that child just tear your heart out and bring you down to a place of desperation. So it's how to step back and breathe. Like one of the situations, I was talking to my writing partner, and she talked about in the chapter of my book where my son ran away the first time, she said, well, you just act like you just walked through and like it wasn't a big deal. Because what I did, I locked up the house and went to bed.
Yeah, okay.
And she said, you know what? I said, well, for one, my knowledge and understanding of young people is that when a teenager runs away, generally, they have a plan for the first night. So why should I lose sleep? He's not going to lose any sleep. I went to bed because I knew I was going to need my rest. I was going to need to be focused the next day to deal with whatever came up.
Now, how old was he when he ran away?
He was 13.
And what caused him to run away? What happened between the two of you?
Now, interestingly enough, it was in hindsight that I realized what was really going on. At the moment, I just thought he was being part of it was he was being a teenager, because most placements that have disruptions happen just about at that stage. Whatever trauma usually a child has experienced, at a young age, it comes back out in their behavior just when they're going through that transition, developmental
Okay,
stages.
so when you look back, why did you feel that?
Well, actually, what had happened, I was engaged to get married.
Okay.
And the guy that I was engaged to felt that my son was playing me. But because I didn't, I'm not much of a yeller. I say what I mean what I say, and that's done. And there was an incident where he had really gone off on my son. And I looked at him, and I saw the reaction, but it wasn't until later when I realized he had been physically abused by the boyfriend of a relative when he was younger before he came to me.
Yes.
What that did, that brought up the fear for him that I was not going to be able to protect him.
Yes.
And in his mind, he needed to get out of there.
But did you stand up for him then? When your boyfriend verbally, attacked him, did you stand up for him then?
Actually, not stand up, because really what he was saying
did you
wasn't wrong.
speak up and intervene and say, look, don't do that. You're not his parent. I am, and that's not your place to do that.
I didn't do it like that.
Why not?
One, because I wanted him to respect that, for one, he was going to be a part of the family, and that he needed to respect it. And I realized then we had different styles of parenting.
Okay.
And what he said really wasn't abusive. It was just harsh, which was totally unlike my style. And so that's the way some people parent. So what I knew, we needed to go aside and talk about, okay, how are we going to deal with this as a united front?
I ran away from home, too.
Oh.
I was very upset with my mother. I wanted to go to a friend's house to stay over the weekend, and she wouldn't allow my brother and I to go. And so Wesley was okay with that. I wasn't. We were 5 years old. So I said, Mama, I'm going to run away from home. She said, very good. She said, why don't you pack your things and run away? So she went and got a suitcase, and she waited while I put my things in, got my little underwear and tennis shoes and shirts and things and some of my toys. She said, now let me just tell you one thing. You can run away, but you bet not cross the street. So I said, yes, ma'am. I got my little case, and I started running around the house. And so she was sitting on the porch, Miss Winnie and Miss Curry and Miss Lillian. After I ran by about the fifth time, I could hear Miss Williams say, why is he running past here with a suitcase? She said, I told the fool he could run away. He said he wanted to run away from home, but he better not cross the street. So you can see I was a slow kid. So after I ran around about the ninth time, Pastor, I got a little time sitting down off the steps. She said, get off my steps. You say you run away from home, keep on running. So I say, okay, I don't want to run no more. Can you give me a glass of water? So I was a little slow, so he knew how to really run away. I didn't know, but after that broke me out of running away. I don't want to run away no more. But I know I have enough sense to know at 5 that you need to cross the street and run away from home.
But as you share that,
Yeah.
actually, I have a chapter in my book about you. Because you were actually the inspiration to keep me focused. Actually, your mother was, not you, but just seeing you there. And I remember you telling the stories, and what the people have said that to me. I don't know why you're dealing with that.
Maybe you need to take that boy back to the welfare department.
But you know what?
Yes.
When I listened to your stories, my youngest son reminded me of you. Always talking,
Yes.
always saying something, and I would try not to laugh. And this is the joyous part of it, because people need to know there was, it basically balances itself out. But he would do something, and I would turn my head. It's like, I'm not going to laugh at this one. He said, I see that smile on your face.
Yes,
I know you want to laugh.
Right. And the good thing about your book, that is hard work. It is H-E-A-R-T, and it's H-A-R-D, but it's also rewarding work.
Yes, it is.
Because ultimately, I made my mother very proud. And that's what you're saying, that even though it's very hard, that if we are willing to commit ourselves with our hearts and not with our minds, because if we allowed our minds to make the decisions for us, and this is a driving theme through your book, that we will not stay the course. And this is what you're saying. Hey, look here, this is not easy work. This is some very difficult work.
This is not what I signed up
If you come
for.
from the heart, because in the heart, that's where love is, and not from anger, and just tell them up front, this is not easy work.
As I say,
What is
motherhood
it
is
that
not
keeps
for
you going?
wimps.
No, that's right. This is not for wimps. What is it that keeps an Evelyn going, the people that do this kind of work? I know in my mother's case, I wondered, particularly when I was at her bedside and watching her during her declining years. Mama was a 22-year breast cancer conqueror. And I remember thinking about, as I was looking at her, a reporter who asked her, "Why did you adopt those kids?" And she said, "I always wanted to share my life with someone." She was an only child. And she did that. What is it that keeps you going? Why do you do this? And you've gone beyond just adopting kids. You're helping other parents see the desire, to create the desire to adopt kids, because we have so many children that need to be adopted. But also giving the parents the tools on how not to desert these kids and walk away. They've already been rejected and many abused. What is it that keeps you doing that? Why is this your reason for being?
There are three things, and one of them I really just discovered this morning through a process when we did our workshop. That had been there, but I think I didn't allow myself to go deep enough to find it. But one is, having worked with kids for almost 30 years now, a lot of them are adults. And I see what the impact was in them becoming adults, the ones who made it and those who didn't. And the first part of my book, the book is in two sections. The first part is entering the village, and it talks about my experience with young people that I didn't bring home, but they were still in my heart. But some of the young people actually wrote a chapter just to talk about what it was like for them as a child, with me being in their lives. And that was so touching to me, and I cried because some of the things I wasn't even aware that it impacted them the way it did.
Yes.
So I know, and they say that it influenced them to be where they are. I mean, we're talking about 35-year-old kids with wives and children.
That kids, so you see the outcome, and now you see the possibility.
Right.
So you're saying, because I've gone through the struggle and all the difficulties of what it takes to be a foster parent or an adoptive parent, and I can tell you that it's not hopeless. That Mama used to say, and as all old folks, a watch pot never boils. That judge not according to appearances when you see these difficult challenges that kids are going through, because some of them come through and they do extremely well.
And make you very proud. And you know one of them,
Yes.
my boy Kevin,
Yes,
who
Kevin.
graduated. He received our first Les Brown Heart of Dreams and Tenacity Award. And he had been in the system since he was 9 months of age, which really is an issue for me because he never got adopted. But that's a whole nother story. But he still had someone that was consistent in his life, at least from the age of probably about 8 on up. But just the fact that there were people who were the village, his mentor. We have a set of greeting cards, and his mentor is with him on a picture, and he had been his mentor since he was 8 years old. So he graduated from college, and we were all there. And it was just touching, because I met him as a high school student, but here's someone who had known and stuck with him from the age of 8. Nobody would have thought all the little things that he was doing, that he would be a college graduate with honors.
Yes.
That inspires me.
But let me just go with the title. It's hard work, being the village that raises a child. And I always said, facetiously, if it take a whole village to raise a child, as we've heard, that's got to be a bad kid. Everybody got to beat that child.
Wait, how many people was in your village?
A whole lot of folks, yeah. But let's look at when you wrote the book, and this is for people that are in social agencies and giving them some insight, and also addressing the fact that many people are dealing with compassion fatigue. They're tired, they're drained. When you take in a child that you didn't bring into this world, or you're dealing with this particular target population, and many of these young people have a lot of issues because of drugs and alcoholism and sexual abuse and physical abuse. Why should people put themselves in that position? What support that will help these parents who say, okay, I want to do this, I want to take a child in? What support that's available to them to help them to make this happen?
Actually, there's little. The agencies, once an adoption is finalized, usually there's no agency intervention. And that's why a lot of people don't adopt, unfortunately. If they're in the foster care system, there's a social worker that stays involved. There are all these little wraparound services that are available, and not many of them are really effective.
Yes.
That's a whole nother story. But what my thought is that if the village knows, the people who are working in the youth groups, the after-school programs, even the teachers, if they are aware, because that they are the village, if they are aware what's going on with this child, they're not going to be so quick to suspend this child. They're not going to be so quick to say this child can't attend this program. So my hope is that the village will be able to support the family, that stuck their neck out there, and can be a support to the family, an extended family. Because a lot of times the extended family doesn't even support the adoptive family. It's like, well, you did it, you on your own. Nobody told you to bring this little kids in
Yes.
your house.
Oh, I heard people say, maybe you need to take that boy back to welfare department. Something's wrong with him. He's cuckoo. I heard it. I understand.
And so I want
Yes.
the villagers, the people in the village, to also understand and be a support to that family and to that child, so that that person doesn't. See, I was a single parent, and it was crazy. And
Yes.
even with two parents, it can be crazy. So everyone needs to be able to take a part in that.
You know what I'm getting also from you on this is that there are people who, because of tough economic times, as you know, there are some people who decide to take in kids because they can get a check.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, don't look at it from this perspective. Even though there's not a lot of help and assistance for you, that all of us have the capacity to contribute to make this world a better place. As Horace Mann, who said we should be ashamed to die until we've made some major contribution to humankind. And as you are aware, the statistics say that young people are 40% of our population, but they're 100% of our future. And all of us should see ourselves as being participants and have the opportunity, as your book talk about, to contribute, to participate, sometimes even just keeping the kids and giving the one who decided to be an adopted parent or foster kid an opportunity to have a night out or a weekend without the kids.
Exactly.
Or either,
And that's part of
yes, go
maintaining
ahead.
your sanity.
Yes.
And finding someone that's willing. Because my two, somebody would say, I'll keep one of them, I'll keep that one, but that one you're going to have to take someplace else.
That was me. Okay. But then, look what happened years later. Okay? So when you are talking about the tough times, the hard times, give me 3 things that people can do during the hard times. Would kids do things that break your heart, as I did with my mother? When I stayed out late at night and my mother stayed up angry, hoping that she didn't get a phone call that I was in the back of an ambulance with a bullet in me, or I did not call her because of the fact that I'd committed a crime and was in jail, or if you do in fact get that call, as Mama did had to come down and get me out of jail. What are the 3 things that you could tell people to make it through the hard times? It's easy to say when things go wrong, don't go with them, but when they do go wrong, what do you do?
Well, one of the things, I have an acronym that I would use the word hard. One is, even in the middle of it, try to find the humor in it.
Okay.
Find something to laugh about. And even the little one ran away one time, and my fiance said, because he didn't think the young one liked him anyway, he said, and when we found out where he was, he said, well, you go get him because I don't want to run into Chucky running down the street in a bicycle. And so that broke some of the tension. You know, so one trying to
By
find
the way, I
some.
don't like your boyfriend either. I don't see, all right? I don't like him either. But go ahead, I understand Chucky, all right? Yeah, you feel better out here. All right. Come on, I only want to know his name. Come on. Yeah. But go ahead on that. So find some humor in it. I don't find it that funny, but go ahead. What's number 2?
The other is to have an ear. Keep your ear open for what's really going on. Try to stand back and say, okay, what is he really saying? What are they really saying beyond the words in that they're coming out of their mouths?
Yes.
You know, so have an ear and to take that and just listen without even saying anything. You know, the A is to acknowledge. I'm upset. I'm disappointed. I'm scared for you. Let them know, because a lot of times we talk to kids from a place of just the authority figure and not a human, figure. And if the child really loves you, they're not going to respond to your more vulnerable emotions in the same way that they would your anger.
Okay.
Because in anger, they're just going to raise up their defenses and like, I'll fix you.
Yeah.
But when you say to them, I love you so much, and that's just not what I wanted for you, and it really hurts me, and I'm disappointed. That's not the kind of life I want for you. They tend to hear you a little bit more.
Okay.
So acknowledge your own feelings.
Yes. And what's the next step?
The next step is to respect yourself by giving yourself the time that you need. Respect your needs. Like you were saying,
Yeah.
Take some time out, go away for the weekend, do something that you enjoy. Remember that you're human.
Yeah, my mother used to go fishing, and she watched Animal Kingdom in the evening, and she got up in the morning, she smoked 2 Lucky Strikes. And that was her way. She started smoking a little Lucky Strike and drank her little coffee. And she said, all right, y'all get up back there. And we had to get up, and that's how the day started. Had to make up your bed and clean up before you left.
But she took that time for
She
herself.
took that time for herself. Fishing was her thing, and looking at Bob Barker, The Price is Right, that was her whole
husband.
Yeah, right. So you're saying have the little rituals and things that allow you to escape so you can maintain your sanity.
Right, that you don't get so involved that you think that's all you are, as a parent.
But you also talk about building a network of support. People that can be there for you, that can step in, that can assist you professionally, a social network, getting neighbors and family members and friends engaged, alerting them, and let them know that you need help. As the saying goes, ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. Talk about
Right.
that.
Well, that's also about what the book is about, because most people don't know how to help you.
Okay.
And most of them, because they wouldn't have taken these kids in the first place,
Yes.
are just going to sort of stand back and look at you. So I want the community to know, one, listen to the parent, and don't say, that's your problem.
Right.
But to listen, again, to have a heart, try to have an understanding of the child. Same things that I want the parents to do, I want the community to do, to have an understanding so that they can be supported. I had really only 2 people that would take care of my kids. I would say, bring them on over. But one of them didn't know how to handle it because they ran circles around.
Right, okay, right. So you got to be selective of the person, you got to evaluate the person, and what the book does is tell you the process of how to do that and how you can in fact help. Because you're right, there are a lot of people who want to help, but they don't know how to help. What can I do? And some people, you got to really guide them and let them help in the way that is most suitable for them, because everybody can't keep the kids. Because when you come back, those kids might be jacked up.
No, they might be jacked up, or the kids are jacked them.
Right, gotcha, yes. So as we begin to finalize this, thinking about the whole issue, we're losing so many young people today because of drugs, because of violence, and many of them don't have a vision of how they fit in the future. You have written this book that give parents and the professional people in the mental health agencies and the social agencies how they can play the supportive role in creating a network of support for these young people that many of them have been deserted and walked away from. But also the bigger thing here is that you're asking people to live a life of significance, to make a difference. I remember this movie by Jack Nicholson, as you know, that I love, about Schmidt, and he said, writing to a little boy named Nduku, when you die and everyone you know dies, unless you've done something significant with your life, it will be as if you were never born. And so with this book, you're saying that all of us have a role to have a life of significance by making some impact and making a difference in a child's life.
Doing something special for a child's heart, because For a Child's Heart is my organization that I started 15 years ago. And when I started it, I hadn't gone through the greater difficulties with my boys, and I said, little did I know when I started it, I would need it more than anybody else.
Yes. So the book, when you think about what it is you've done, this is Evelyn Polk. She has written a book that helped parents to deal with the issue of raising children who are not their kids physically, but they have adopted them or have them in foster care, and many of them have some challenges and difficulties, how to handle those things in the proper way, how to respond with love as opposed to react with anger and sometimes getting help. Right. But the professional people that are dealing with them, but taking into account their limited resources for many of these kids.
Yes.
And these kids need someone with a heart, and it's hard work.
Yes,
And that's like the fact that you're being real. And this is not easy work. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Yes, it is.
I'm the product of that. I'm the product of someone like you, and I just thank you so much for caring and having the kind of heart that you do.
Rachel's weeping for her